Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to PBA at Noon. I'm Paul Benwell, and I'm joined by my colleague, Sophie Caesar. Today, we have with us Clean Seed, which trades under the symbol CSX on the Venture Exchange. Clean Seeds is a progress facilitator that turns solutions for modern agricultural problems into commercially viable products to fulfill new demand. As the demand for locally grown produce increases, the marketplace in North America alone is $5 billion for air seeders and planters. Clean Seeds Smart Seeds technologies are revolutionizing seeding and agricultural innovation. Their innovations create a new class of highly accurate seeding equipment designed specifically for today's farmers while reducing input costs and improving yields. Today, we have joining us the Chairman and CEO, Graham Lampriar. Hi, Graham. Great to see you again. There you are. Whenever you're ready, you can start your presentations. Everybody out there, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box, and we'll ask Graham at the end. Thanks so much, Graham. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for attending. And Paul, it's good to be back with you guys. I much would rather be back in a physical form instead of a virtual form, but that's the form we're in today. We are in the technology ag space. We've been in this business since 2011. We started a mandate some time ago to revolutionize the seeding and planting technology space. I'm going to walk you through today a little history, the technology, our partnerships, where we're going from here, and we'll deal with questions at the end. So I just want to make sure that I can share my screen. The disclaimer there is obviously, don't want to spend the time reading it, but it'll be on the downloadable document. So we're in, as mentioned, the ag space, but we're in the machinery technology space. These slides that you'll see today there's a lot of detail on them. I recommend you download them and read them carefully later to get a little more detail, but we'll brush over the surface of what it is we're doing. We're addressing a global market. We're addressing demand for food. We're addressing a technology that can execute on the data that's out there today in a $19 billion market. We'll be starting in our own market, in our own back door this year. The most important time for a plant's life is actually at the planting stage. How you put the plant in the ground, what you put with it in the ground is essential to reaching the full potential of that plant. We have spent $20 million and dedicated 7 years of time, effort, and engineering to develop the world's most sophisticated seeding and planting technology called the Smart Seeder Max. The Smart Seeder Max is a whole new category of seeding and planting technology that is turning the industry on its head. We've been at this for some time. We built 7 full-scale machines. We traveled across Western Canada demonstrating these machines in the early years, getting it right, testing our software, in-ground opener components, and making sure that everything was sound. We ran into challenges along the journey. Frame was a bit heavy, a bit wide at the time. And this is truly the final iteration that goes to production as we speak and entering the sales cycle. But that's a photo of what the machine looks like. There'll be a video you can look at after the presentation that I recommend you watch. You can see it on our webpage also, and that'll give you a bit of history about who we are, our culture, and some endorsements from farmers and various other aspects. So what makes this drill important? And I don't want people to get caught up in thinking that this is just a piece of heavy iron and another piece of farm equipment. That's not the case. What we have done is developed a new machine that can leverage all of the data and information that is being created now with the likes of Farmer's Edge, Nutrien, and others. The reason I bring up Farmer's Edge is they just went public, for example. They did their IPO. Their IPO was at $17 a share. They are a web service data business. They accumulate all the data and information from weather, soil samples, mapping historical data on moisture. And they create these data files for the farmers to actually leverage and put an educated decision in the ground to maximize their crop. So we're actually the tool that executes on that data. Machines of the past can't do it like we can. So our timing is, a 10-year overnight success, as they say. But to be clear, we take all that data and information that is created by the likes of Farmers Edge, and that plugs directly into this technology, and then we can micromanage the delivery of that recommendation directly into the ground. For an example, this is an aerial shot of our drill on a farm, and you'll see the mapping layover there. That is how refined these maps have become. So you'll see the different color variations. That's nitrogen requirement, moisture levels, and so forth. We can take all that data and immediately translate that into in-ground actionable, executionable event. So when that drill is traveling, it will micromanage like a printer, and it will print that exact map that you see there in the ground with these seed fertilizers. We do up to 5 different products. We do multiple variable rate volumetric, and we also singulate, which I'll get into more detail in a little while. The air seeders is the most prevalent machine in the prairies in Canada, and Canada is one of the largest crop producing countries in the world. It's just the past. It's technology central cart. It blows the seed and fertilizer down hundreds of feet of airline. And at the end, the consistency is, well, it's inconsistent. And there's a report at the bottom attached here that shows the variances from one side to the other. So as we enter this micromanagement world of seeding and planting, the machines of the past just can't do it. And we addressed that by developing this technology. We were ahead of the curve. We filed for patents and came out with our initial presentation to the Farm Progress Show in 2013. And the lid really came off, and we knew we had something pretty sophisticated. So we embarked on a program to build the entire system and the whole drill. This is the future. It is operational, it's fully running, it's patented, and it's ready to go. I won't go through all the details of what the technology does, but let me put it this way. It's if you own the average farm owns a black and white television, this is introducing a high definition 4K digital TV and all the attributes that go with it. It's a complete game changer for the ag space. These are a cluster of different technologies that are patented. I won't get into too much detail on that, but I'll happily answer questions later. The same with this one, detailed, but you can read it later. So we own our own software, developed our own software along the machine. What does that software do? People have asked me, well, what's the difference between that and Farmers Edge? And let me explain. This technology takes that data, translates that data into the ground. So our software has been designed to take all platforms, take that information and execute it into a high definition delivery system into the ground. So we own all of our own software and all of the related hardware. So again, I put a simple slide together. All these these firms out there provide the data, we execute, and the crop is the end result. Think of it this way. The data is the image, we are the printer, and we print that image into the ground, and the results have proven to be very successful. Here's a slide example. On the left is the leading air seeder in the market. On the right is a simple example of the root structure and the consistency on the yield. You can see that with the crops coming out. It's a night and day. This machine is truly the next generation, and this is just a simple slide to show you the benefits visually, just on the root structure alone, because we place the seed and fertilizer in the right places, on the right volumes, at the right time, and the results are addressed accordingly. Our consistent average has been $100 an acre, and that's conservative, to be honest. The average farm's 5,000 acres, $100 an acre, that adds up pretty quick. And you combine that with the digital aspects that are coming to bear on the marketplace, I think we're all collectively trying to do a strong job of improving crop production around the world. One of the other considerations that we actually started on this many years ago, but it just seems to become, it's prudent for the narrative right now in the industry, is our opener system, the part that actually goes in the ground, really addresses regenerative agriculture, carbon sequestration, making sure that the soil structure is stable and making sure that you micromanage your input. So we've started to really start talking about the environmental impact side of this technology, the release of greenhouse gases. 20-25% of it is from agriculture, and a lot of that is the way they till the soil and the way they disturb the soil surface. Our technology travels slightly beneath the surface. We can place multiple products in different areas, and it keeps the soil structure stable, which also contributes to carbon sequestration. You'll see a lot more coming out on that as the company evolves. Our opener design, we worked with the University of British Columbia many years ago. The soil disturbance was minimal. I would say we're best in class by far. So that will become more prevalent as this environmental movement starts to take shape. So the agricultural full cycle is you get your recipe, you execute in the ground, and you get stronger yields. There's an interesting part of this that is key for us. You have two markets. You have the air seeder market, which handles Canada and the small grain business, if you will. And then you have the planter market, which is primarily down in the United States. Planters plant corn and bean. America is all about corn and bean. Canada's all the small grains. With a planter, you can only do one thing. You can go along and you can seed. Then you get put a little fertilizer in there, but then you have to travel with a different machine to put any inoculants or any other type of fertilizers in place. And the air seeders had their limitations. You could do small grains, but you couldn't singulate corn or bean. So with our Smart Seeder Max, we've combined the two. They're truly a hybrid. And the hybrid now addresses all crops, all inputs, all variable rate on every single row. There is no other machine out there that can do it. And we're fully protected on this technology for the next 15 years at least, as we continue to layer other IP on top of it. This is just an example. This is our IP portfolio. Everything you see in green is countries that we are patented in. The numbers you see there is the markets we can address and the size of those markets on an annual basis. One of the big ones that came for us was the US patent. When we got issued our United States patent, the likes of Deere and the big boys didn't think we could get that patent. We worked extremely hard early to make sure that we layered multiple layers of patent protection within our philosophy of how to do this technology. So the US patent's a big one for us because that's the benchmark. We have multiple patents around the world, but they're all anchored to the success of the US patent. The Canadian government's been extremely supportive of this development from the very beginning. They helped us with our funding. They helped us with our salaries in the early days before we got on our feet. And they also helped us with our IP. So I'm not only comforted by the portfolio we have of intellectual property, but I'm quite certain that the Canadian government would stand behind us if there was any ever attempt on infringement. The Saskatchewan did a detailed test on our machine equipment. It proved to be nothing like it in the market, extremely beneficial to the farmers, and they gave us an incentive of a 50% tax reduction for 15 years. There'll be a release coming out soon about us moving into Saskatoon with a new head office and a new assembly facility, so we can trigger that tax break. Another indicator of support from Canadian government parties. Commercialization strategy. We intend to roll out North America first, Canada, then United States. We do have quite an aggressive M&A strategy, which I'll get to as we go along. You'll see with our actors and various members of our team that we have a strategy of acquisition to grow this business very quickly. At the same time, we will be a going concern with our own market distribution and sales cycle, and then we'll be heading into the United States soon thereafter. But here's some numbers on reflection of what our revenues would look like for the first 5 years, but I expect to grow that dramatically through M&A activity. Our first addressable market annually is 5 billion. That's Canada and the United States. I love this country. Canada will be the very first push, and then we'll be moving down into the United States, probably I would say in the fall of this year on some demonstrations, and start opening up the US market. Well, how are we going to build all these, Graham? Well, previously I tried to make an acquisition of a company in the States that we were unsuccessful in doing because of, how can I put it, their financial modeling was not quite as it should be. So we made a decision that I think we're in a better position to joint venture the production instead of greenfielding a plant. So we've done a deal with Norwood, excuse me, out of the USA. They're a fantastic partner. They build for deer and case. So we partnered with these guys for two reasons. One, we know them well. My president, Gary Anderson, former founder of Ag Growth International, which is a great Canadian success story, knows Dan very well and made the introductions. So we had a good foot to start with. But we now have access to all of this infrastructure, the manufacturing line and capabilities without Clean Seed having to write a check to greenfield a plant. So, so far, they've been excellent to deal with. They come with their own iron IP, which is the frame, and it alleviates a great deal of capital outlay for Clean Seed and structures us very well for production. This is just a repeat of the numbers you saw. You can look and read that later of what the growth expectations are, 2021, 22, 23. I'll get into more detail on what our plans are in 2021 in the Q&A, or also after I've whipped through these slides. This is the global market of planters. You'll be able to read later. It shows the different regions, the amount of production for our business that can be in each one of those regions, and it gives you an idea of the scope and scale of who's got market share and how we can enter that market. So let's touch on what are we doing. We're around the corner here. We signed our first license agreement, which pleased we did that. It was a 2.5 US upfront fee to access aspects of our IP for a company that we quite like to continue in their own program, but it validates the security of our intellectual property. That transaction was completed right in the beginning of COVID. That was fun, but they closed. Our next step is we are bringing machines to the market in the next 6 weeks. They will be across Canada, seeding, planting, and demonstrating. We brought on new senior executives in the sales and operations side. We've just done a recent call for distributors and agronomic companies like the likes of Farmer's Edge and others, and Crop Pro. So it's a very catalytic year for us. Agriculture is finally in the main spotlight, and we are the machine that can execute on all of that data. We're the hardware. Again, acquisitions, I'll touch on that another time, but we do intend to grow aggressively through M&A activity. License deal, this is what I just touched on. That also has an ongoing 5% royalty revenue income for Clean Seed. We all have to eat. The world is growing. We have environmental, the population is growing. The world isn't growing. The world is actually shrinking for arable land. And we have to produce food. I think people don't realize, people think their food comes from Safeway or Save on Foods. The reason why we have this ag movement in digital ag and our hardware that can actually execute on that is because we're under pressure to feed the world, and we need to be conscious of the environmental approach of how to do it. And how do we maximize our yield on the limited land that we have, because the population is growing. We are the cornerstone of that movement. We started this in 2011, and finally everyone's caught on, if you will, from the third-party data provider. So we're in a beautiful position now to actually leverage this asset. Our board of directors is extremely strong. I want to touch on a few of them. Gary Anderson, fantastic man, large shareholder in Clean Seed. He was the co-founder of Ag Growth International, a great Canadian success story. They're a $1 billion company listed on the TSX. He recently retired a couple of years ago, and he was at an event on his retirement, and he got off the stage and sat down to have a coffee, and I went over and had a coffee with him and brought him out of retirement. And he joined our board of directors. He is our president. He works with me very closely on M&A considerations and joint venture considerations. Incredible credibility, great man. Been in the business for over 40 years. He started his business $3 million, took it to $1 billion. My chief operating officer is Colin Rush, fantastic man, been with us for 5 years now. He ran the special division for Case IH, which is the largest competitor to Deere. He ran all of their seeding and planting division. He now runs all of our operations. Steve Sommerfeld, fabulous addition, over $600 million worth of transactions with AGI. The bandits, I call them. Steve and Gary know each other very well. I'm honored to have them both on our board of directors. They put together $600 million worth of acquisitions over a 15-year span, and to have them on our board is fantastic. Independent director, Bob Tringle is a fabulous guy. He's the chief executive vice president of AMVAC. It's a $500 million NASDAQ listed company that specializes in agricultural chemical inoculants. This was the company that had to do a licensing agreement with us, and we welcomed them on the board because it's very synergistic what they're doing. And finally, Glenn. Glenn was the senior analyst and investment banker for Raymond James. And he recently joined our board and works very closely with me on the market side of things. So in a nutshell, we have a local market of 5 billion, a global market of 19. We have growing demand for crop production. Our technology is protected from the ground up, from the opener to the electronics, to the software systems, to how we utilize data. We are the machine of the future, no question. The machine is now ready, it's now available, and it dovetails perfectly into this aggressive movement in agriculture that we're seeing before us. Our shares outstanding are 76 million and fully diluted 89. People will ask, how are you funding the next phase? We have warrants that have been exercised that and also are in the process of being exercised. That gives the company the capital requirement for this 21 rollout season. When we get into the sales cycle, which is this year, Farm Credit Canada, EDC, and other parties will be working with us on debt financing the production of these machines. Well, that's as quick as I can get through it. I know it's a surface brush. I'm more than happy to take as many questions as possible, and I hope that I covered the basics for you.
Thank you, Graham. It's Sophie. We have quite a few questions, so we'll get right onto it. I'm going to ask you in the order that they came in, so excuse me if it's not ideal. So no, here's one. With the smart seeder, what will you be offering farmers? For example, leasing or purchasing, is there any offer for them?
Okay, so how this works, I'm just going to put the picture up as a backdrop. We don't provide financing. The dealer network provides financing. So recently we put out a call. Everything's changing in the world. The way you sell things, market things, look at us. We're doing this virtually instead of physically being in the room. So we've decided to really change the way you market the product as well. So we've done a call to action for dealer networks and the agronomic firms like the Farmer's Edge and other firms to become part of this movement, if you will. So what happens is, and it's been an aggressive response, is the dealer network manages the trades, they manage the financing the farmer, we provide the technology. Now we do provide the service experience by, we have a unique approach to look after the farmer. But at the end of the day, the financing for these machines are all handled by the dealer network or by their direct banking structure. No different than if you were to buy a car. The only difference that we're doing now is we're spreading our net much wider and not pigeonholing ourselves with one particular dealer. This is for everybody, so we've opened it up to everybody.
Okay, excellent. Here's a question from John. What's the lifespan? He actually has 3 questions, but let's start with, what's the lifespan of a machine?
Lifespan of a machine is as much as you want to service the parts and components. You've got about a 15% reoccurring revenue annually on spare parts. You have your discs, your openers, your metering foam, wheels, and so forth. The fundamentals of the frame, the heavy iron, they last a lifetime if you look after it and don't put it through a ditch. But it is a typical piece of equipment that requires servicing, and usually it's an annual service program. I would suspect, depending on.
Does that?
Sorry.
Clean Seat does that, the annual service program?
We provide all the parts and the components, and then the dealer actually does the servicing itself.
Okay.
But we are a direct supplier of the parts and components. So a farmer can contact us directly, and anything related to software and all the small stuff's quite easy because we designed this machine to be plug and play. It may sound complex, but we've done all the complex work up front to make it easy from a service perspective.
Excellent. So typically, how many years do they amortize over the machines?
3.
3. Okay. And what's the average age out there for existing feeders?
They've run their course. The average age is 3 to 5 years. You know, for the last 20 years, farmers were rotating their air seeders reasonably quickly. And the reason being is they kept adapting and adding technology to it to try and get it to address this movement, if you will. So they, you know, the following year they'd come out with a new add-on component, and so the farmer would go out and buy it, and then they would trade it in. This has everything that a farmer could ever want. And if you watch that video and other videos, and please look at our website, you'll see some responses from parties. But you know, now you're looking at air seeders that the average is 5 years old, and they're all time to be changed, all of them.
Okay. What's the average price of a smart seeder?
Smart seeder average price is 700,000 and up. To compare that, I don't want to scare anybody with sticker shock. The high-end air seeders are in the $750,000 mark, and then people would say to me, "Well, why don't you charge 800,000?" We have designed this machine very carefully to make it as production friendly as possible, cost effective as possible. So the farmer will get, this will be 100% of the leading technologies out there from a price point, with an additional 80% in advantages of what the technology can do. So from a price point perspective, use $750,000 as your baseline, of which our program this year is to sell 10 to 18 for this season.
Okay. European farms, they're much smaller. Could your system be used over there, or adapted somehow to be used over there?
Yes, it is. Good question. And I think that I should adapt that into our slide presentation. Every row on this machine, and this is 60 feet wide, is an independent seeder. So scalability can go from 1 foot all the way up to 82 feet.
Wow.
So this fits all markets on size and scale, on what it does in the ground. It's very scalable from 1 foot to 80 something feet, 82 feet.
Okay. Is the software, I mean, you mentioned that it's very simple, but there's a question here. Is it the software complex to use, and do you need a lot of training to utilize all aspects of the smart feeder?
One of the things we did, driven by our marketing department, run by my brother, Noel, actually, was to make it Apple style friendly, simple, easy to use, easy to monitor, plug and play, one touch, it does the job for you. So people will say to me, well, what about all this complex data that's coming in from the likes of Farmers Edge and so forth? That data is created by a third party, not us. We then can take that information and it gets automatically translated in our software to actionable data. And we've made it as user-friendly as possible. So behind the scenes, everything is being calculated for you, and it's very much a simple one-touch environment to simplify the operations. The complexity of it is in the translation of the data into the ground, but we've made this as easily usable as possible because we knew ahead of the curve that people would be concerned about what's going to happen with technology and how we're going to they're afraid of technology. Give me a simple chain and a drive and a plow and it works. No, the world's changed dramatically. So we made sure that we spent countless hours and money to make sure it was simple, easy, keep it simple, stupid.
Perfect. When you talk about prescriptions, do they come in from a variety of companies? Do you make the prescriptions?
No, one of the things we were clear on was to not piggyback with one particular company. As you've probably noticed in the media, I only bring Farmers Edge up because they've just IPO'd, but Farmers Edge is one of the leading ones. TELUS is aggressively moving in this space. Crop Pro, Decisive. There's a lot of companies out there that provide that service. That's a service I don't even want to remotely get into because it's an aggressive race for value, and there are a lot of providers that are now providing it. But that data is unexecutionable in high definition without this machine. So it's called a shape file. It's done by the third party. Then the farmer gets that information. He looks at it, he tweaks it, he thinks about what he wants to do. It goes into a shape file, and it's literally on a plug. And it plugs into the machine, and we do the rest.
Okay. Are there any institutional shareholders?
We have a few institutional shareholders. The majority of our shares are held by the farming community that have supported us along the way, management. There are some institutional holders, Canaccord, Raymond James, a few, but most of this is tightly held with farmers and management. There's very little out in the float, to be honest.
Okay. How long does it take to manufacture a unit?
Well, we just brought on a fantastic VP of operations that is going to take it down from a 14-day window down to 3. He's working closely with our partner on manufacturing, but we've made a key decision recently, and we'll be announcing this next week. I don't think it's a concern of information, but we're opening a facility in Saskatoon, and we've decided that we're going to be the final assembly for this machine, control the quality control, install the harnessing electronics here in Canada. We can do it cheaper and we can control it more. So we're splitting the responsibilities between our joint venture partner for the iron, the paint, the heavy lifting, if you will, and then it comes to Canada for refined installation, completion, and delivery.
And what are the gross margins like on a seeder?
On this seeder,
Yeah.
I don't know about other companies. Some have done terrible and some are okay, but our average is 30%. We believe there are a few things that we're going to convert from iron to plastics in the future that will bring that even better, but we're gunning heavily on the 30.
And Graham, do you work closely with the farming community on the design and the tweaking of the technology for commercialization?
100%. And I tell you what, that was a plus in some cases and negative in others because farmers wanted it all. And we worked with several in the early days, and I'd love it to do this, and I'd like it to do that, and I'd love it to float, and I'd like it to do this. So the farmers have been riding it. And one of our senior partners in this thing, Jason Schultz, he farms 8,000 acres, and he's been side by side with us throughout the process. Then we bring farmers in on test days and validation days. The amount of time and effort we've put into R&D to have this thing ready has been astronomical, but yeah, the farmers have played a massive role in this because they're the end user, and I needed comfort that we were heading in the right direction on several fronts.
Well, that's great. I mean, at least you have buy-in from the farming
Oh yeah,
community.
we do.
Which is
Watch the video. I recommend it.
okay, for sure. Paul, did you want to ask a question or two before we wrap it up?
Yeah. The warrants, you said, are they going to be fully taken care of and like to be fully exercised, and then you're going to get the capital you need to move forward?
That's correct.
All right. And the next, what's the percentage of revenue? Like, how do you break it down? Like the sale of a machine? Is it the maintenance, of the machines, like moving forward, or what are the breakdowns of revenues?
The revenue for us is the machine sale out of the gate, 15% annual reoccurring revenue, 15% of 750 per year on parts and components. And then we have a very unique, I can't share too much of it, but it's going to be tied into per acre revenue that ties into artificial intelligence and various other things we're working with some pretty heavyweights here to be able to monetize per acre calculations on an annual basis. Part of that's involving the carbon market and various other aspects. But the core bread and butter, it will be the machines, 15% recurring revenue on parts and components, and then reoccurring revenue from licensing in areas in the world that we don't want to necessarily manufacture or ship to. And then there'll be a per acre revenue leveraging some of the added aspects of our software.
Okay. All the data that you collect every time the machine is used, like, and the performance of the crop, you're maintaining all that data, right? That's unique to you?
Yes. Well, here's the data is an interesting animal. Farmers don't want to share this data. Like, they can access the data from the farmers' edges of the world to make a educated decision. They don't want to share the results, but we have that.
Do you share the results?
We do with the farmer. It's up to the farmer. Now, these big players want us to share it with everybody, but there's laws that are still need to be navigated in that regard. But we calculate the as applied data, the information of what, when, where, and how it went in, and he can then assess the results of that. But that's the recipe, the golden recipe for the farmer, and it's their information, and it's up to them what they do with it. In the future, our objective is to leverage that data into an artificial intelligence environment where there'll be actionable communications between the cloud and the ground, which like autonomous and where these things are going. But for now, the data is a valuable asset to the farmer, and he just does not want to share it. And I don't blame him.
I understand that completely.
Sorry, we had two other questions come in, and I think that they're actually both related, and I think it'll be a great way to end it off. They're both related to the share price. Where do you see the share price going, and do you see a jump in the share price that's occurred at the end of January as sustainable or more news driven? So just maybe a little bit of an outlook.
The share price is something that's always an interesting subject. I made a mistake in I shouldn't say a mistake. I didn't overmarket the company. I didn't promote the stock. I built the business and made sure that we got all of our IP done, our machines done, and be in a position to leverage this asset. It just so happens that it's a 10-year overnight success now, and we're ready to go. And the timing for this couldn't be any better. The share price move is because people are starting to get aware of it. We've been on BNN. This IPO from Farmers Edge is getting people's attention, wondering how we dovetail into this situation. I think, not to sound promotional, but I think this is pretty much your last shot at buying shares anywhere near here. If you read my deck, watch the video, go through the website, and you ask me if you think that this company's undervalued at $50 million when with what we have, where we're going, and it's going to be news release heavy for the next 18 months. And we're very excited to finally be turning the curve and executing on this valuable asset we've created.
Oh, Graham, excellent. I'm so happy to have you back. I think it was 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, the last time that we had you in Montreal. So what an update. You've really brought it to the forefront. So kudos to you and your crew.
Thank you.
And again, to everyone out there, like he said, watch the video. You'll see the YouTube video. We'll announce that. We'll send it out, and we'll publish it. Everybody can get a chance to take a look at it. Graham, thank you so much. Really much appreciated.
Yeah, we enjoyed being with you and nice to see you all. And hopefully we can break some bread soon in Montreal.
We look
Sure.
forward to that.
Okay,
Thanks.
take care.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye-bye.